I still remember the exact moment something inside me shifted. It wasn't during a breakup. It wasn't after some huge argument either. It happened in the middle of a grocery store while a woman I thought I understood looked at me like I was a complete stranger. And the weird part was, she wasn't angry. That's what unsettled me. For most of my 20s, I thought relationships were simple. You meet someone. You make them feel loved. You stay loyal, dependable, respectful, and eventually things work out. That was the formula I believed in. And honestly, I wasn't a bad guy. I had a steady job in Chicago, paid my bills on time, avoided drama, and tried to be emotionally available in the way people online always talked about. I listened carefully. I remembered birthdays. I answered texts quickly. I thought those things mattered the most. Then I met Ava. We worked in the same office building, though not for the same company. I'd usually see her downstairs near the coffee stand around 8:15 every morning. She wasn't loud or overly friendly. Actually, the first thing I noticed about her was how observant she seemed. Most people waited in line staring at their phones. She noticed everything. One morning, a guy dropped his wallet near the elevator, and before he even realized it, she picked it up and quietly handed it back without trying to make it a moment. Tiny things like that stayed in my head. Eventually we started talking. First casually. Then every day. She had this calm way of speaking that made you feel like she was fully present. Not distracted. Not pretending to listen while thinking about something else. And I think that's what pulled me in. Being around her felt rare. After a few months, we started dating. At first, everything felt easy. Almost suspiciously easy. No games. No dramatic fights. No mixed signals. But slowly, I started noticing things I couldn't fully explain. Whenever I became too available, she became distant. Not cold exactly. Just less engaged. If I rearranged my schedule too often for her, she'd grow quieter afterward. If I constantly checked in, asking if everything was okay, she'd respond politely, but something about her energy changed. At first I thought I was imagining it. I remember telling my friend Marcus about it one night after work. He laughed and said, "You're probably overthinking. Women want attention." And honestly, that matched what I believed back then. So I gave more attention. More reassurance. More effort. More consistency. And strangely, things got worse. Not dramatically worse. That's what confused me. She still answered texts. Still smiled. Still wanted to see me. But it felt like some invisible tension was slowly growing between us. Like she was losing respect for something I couldn't see. One Friday night, we went to dinner at this small Italian place she liked. Halfway through the meal, she suddenly asked me something strange. "Do you ever say no to people?" I laughed a little. "What do you mean? You always adjust yourself around everyone." I shrugged. "That's called being considerate." She nodded slowly, but her expression stayed serious. Then she said something I didn't fully understand until years later. "Sometimes people trust you less when you never disappoint them." That sentence stayed in my head for weeks. At the time, I thought it sounded backwards. Why would someone trust you less for being reliable? But after that night, I started noticing patterns I had ignored before. Whenever I expressed an actual opinion instead of trying to keep the peace, she became more engaged. More curious. When I stopped instantly responding to every message because I was genuinely busy, she seemed more interested in seeing me later. And when I canceled plans once because I needed time alone after a rough week, she surprised me by showing more warmth toward me afterward. None of it matched the relationship advice I'd always heard. I remember feeling frustrated. Part of me thought, why does emotional distance suddenly create attraction? But over time, I realized that wasn't actually what was happening. The truth was more uncomfortable than that. One night everything finally clicked. We were sitting in her apartment during a thunderstorm, talking about relationships. Somehow the conversation turned personal. She admitted something that caught me off guard. I used to date a guy who agreed with everything I said, she told me. At first it felt comforting. Then eventually it felt lonely. I frowned. Lonely? Yeah, she said quietly. Because I never knew who he really was. That hit me harder than she probably realized. Because suddenly I saw myself clearly. I thought love meant removing friction. I thought being a good partner meant constantly adapting, constantly reassuring, constantly proving safety. But somewhere along the way, I had slowly erased parts of myself without noticing. Not intentionally. Just subtly. I avoided disagreement. Avoided tension. Avoided disappointing people. And in doing that, I accidentally became emotionally unreadable. That was the first dark truth about female psychology I realized too late. Many women are not searching for perfection. They're searching for emotional certainty. And weirdly, perfection often feels emotionally uncertain because it feels performative. A person who never disagrees, never pulls away, never prioritizes themselves, eventually starts feeling less real. That realization bothered me for days. Because I started replaying past relationships in my head. Every time I lost myself trying to become ideal, attraction slowly disappeared. Not because women enjoy toxic behavior like angry men online always claim. But because people, especially emotionally intuitive people, can sense when someone abandons themselves for approval. And once that happens, the relationship changes. I started noticing something else too. Ava never responded strongly to words. She responded to emotional consistency. If I promised confidence but acted anxious, she noticed. If I pretended not to care while secretly seeking validation, she noticed. Women often notice emotional contradictions long before men realize they're showing them. That was another uncomfortable truth. Most men think attraction is about saying the right things. But many women pay more attention to emotional patterns than words themselves. How you react under stress. How you carry disappointment. Whether your kindness feels genuine or strategic. Whether your confidence disappears the second approval is removed. And once I saw that, I couldn't unsee it. I remember one specific moment clearly. Ava and I were walking downtown after dinner when we passed a couple arguing outside a parking garage. The guy kept saying, "I do everything for you." Over and over. And the woman looked exhausted. Not angry. Exhausted. Ava glanced at me and quietly said, "That sentence usually means the relationship is already broken." At first I thought that sounded harsh. But later I understood. Because, "I do everything for you," often hides resentment underneath it. It sounds loving on the surface, but psychologically, it can become transactional. Like love slowly turning into emotional bargaining. And I realized I had done that too. Not intentionally. But deep down, part of me believed if I became useful enough, needed enough, patient enough, I would never be abandoned. That fear shaped more of my behavior than I wanted to admit. The relationship with Ava eventually ended about a year later. Not because of betrayal or some huge dramatic event. We just wanted different futures. And strangely, the breakup was calm. Painful, but calm. A few weeks after it ended, I sat alone in my apartment thinking about everything I had misunderstood for years. I realized the dark secrets people talk about regarding female psychology usually aren't dark at all. They just feel uncomfortable because they expose illusions men want to believe. The illusion that love is earned through endless sacrifice. The illusion that attraction is controlled through perfect behavior. The illusion that women only care about words, gifts, or attention. But human psychology is deeper than that. People are drawn toward emotional honesty, toward self-respect, toward individuals who can love deeply without abandoning themselves. And maybe the hardest truth of all. Many men spend years trying to become chosen by others before they've even figured out who they are without validation. That changes the way you behave in relationships. You become cautious, performative, hyper-attentive. You stop relating naturally and start managing perceptions. Women often sense that long before men realize they're doing it. And once I understood that, my entire perspective on relationships shifted. I stopped treating dating like a performance review. Stopped measuring my worth through reactions. Stopped believing tension automatically meant failure. Something surprising happened after that. My relationships became quieter, more honest, less exhausting. Because I was no longer trying to constantly control how I was perceived. I remember running into Ava almost 2 years later at a bookstore downtown. We talked for maybe 15 minutes. No bitterness. No awkwardness. Before leaving, she smiled and said, "You seem different now." I asked, "Better or worse?" She laughed softly. "More real." That stayed with me the entire drive home. Because for years, I thought being loved meant becoming whatever made other people comfortable. But real connection seems to happen when people can actually feel your identity clearly, including your boundaries, flaws, opinions, and imperfections. And maybe that's the hidden lesson most people realize too late. Not just about women. About human behavior in general. People don't connect deeply with perfection. They connect with authenticity they can emotionally trust. And sometimes the most dangerous thing in a relationship isn't rejection. It's slowly disappearing inside your attempt to avoid it.